Picture a Saturday evening. The year is 1973. You're 9 years old, cross-legged on a shag carpet the color of dried mustard. The TV's warm glow the only light in the room. The smell of your mom's meatloaf drifts in from the kitchen. The screen flickers, and the whole world feels no bigger than your living room. That was the 1970s, a decade of disco balls and draft cards. A time when you bought gas by the liter and prayed the line wasn't too long. When 3 television channels decided what America talked about. And when a kid's greatest ambition on a summer's day was to stay outside until the street lights came on. We tend to think of the 70s as a troubled decade. And sure, the oil crisis hit in 1973, Watergate shook the nation in 1974, and inflation chewed through family budgets like a Rust Belt factory eating through steel. But somehow, woven through all of it, was a texture of daily life that felt rich, real, yours. These are 17 memories of growing up and living in 1970s America. Not the headlines, not the history books, the stuff you actually remember. That stiff indigo scent, nothing else like it. In 1971, a pair of Levi's 501s cost around $6, and you wore them until the knees went white. No pre-distressing, no factory fading. You earned every crease yourself. Kids would beg their parents to take them to the department store. Sears, JCPenney, maybe Kmart if money was tight, and the denim section had a smell all its own, crisp, sturdy, permanent. You pulled on a pair and felt ready for anything. 6 in the morning, you were already awake. The rest of the house, dead silent, you'd creep downstairs, turn the dial as softly as you could, and wait for the static to clear. Then, Bugs Bunny, Scooby-Doo, the Jackson 5 of animated series. An hour of color and chaos before the adults even stirred. There were no on-demand streams, no rewinds. If you missed it, it was gone until next week. That's what made Saturday mornings feel sacred. You showed up, or you missed out. October 1973, the Arab oil embargo hits. Overnight, the lines at American gas stations stretch around the block. Some days, you'd wait 2 hours. Some days you'd get to the pump and the station would be dry. Your dad sat behind the wheel, knuckles tight. NPR crackling on the AM radio. You sat in the back seat watching the cars crawl forward 6 inches at a time. You didn't fully understand it, but you understood that something important had shifted. The world wasn't quite as steady as it had seemed. Summer 1973. You came home from the pool and turned on the TV, and there was a man in a suit at a long table talking about something called an 18.5-minute gap. Your grandmother watched from her armchair, very still, a cup of coffee going cold in her hand. The Watergate hearings ran live across all 3 networks, ABC, NBC, CBS, every one of them. Gavels and microphones and grave-faced senators. 28 million Americans watched at some point each day. It was the first time many families truly understood that the news wasn't just background noise, it was history, happening in real time. Every kitchen in America, circa 1974, came in one of 3 colors: avocado green, harvest gold, or burnt copper. The refrigerator, the stovetop, sometimes the countertop, all of it in shades that would make a modern interior designer weep. But here's what you remember, the warmth of it. The sound of a percolator bubbling on a Sunday morning. The weight of a cast iron pan that had been in the family for 30 years. That kitchen wasn't a showroom, it was where everything happened. Nobody wore a helmet, that's just the truth. You'd launch off a homemade ramp made from a plank and a brick, and if you ate asphalt, you got up, wiped the gravel off your palms, and tried again. Your mom didn't see it. She was inside. You weren't expected home until dinner. There was a freedom to that independence that's hard to explain. To someone who grew up with a phone and a location pin, you had your neighborhood, your mates. A 10-block radius that felt like a country all its own. You heard it before you saw it. That tinny, looping melody floating down the street like a signal from another world. pop goes the weasel, or beat turkey in the straw. And every kid within 3 blocks dropped what they were doing and sprinted. A creamsicle was 15 cents, a fudgesicle a dime. You'd arrive breathless, dig into your shorts pocket, and pray you had enough. The truck driver, usually a middle-aged man named something like Ray, knew every kid by name on his route. That was community, built one frozen treat at a time. September 21, 1970, ABC launched Monday Night Football, and America rearranged itself. Suddenly, Monday evenings had a ritual. Your dad ate dinner fast. The neighbors might come over. Howard Cosell's voice became the soundtrack to 10 million living rooms. By 1977, it was drawing over 30 million viewers a week. It wasn't just football. It was appointment television before anyone used that phrase. You knew where everyone was on Monday night. Grilled cheese on a flat top. Coffee, dark and bitter, in thick ceramic cups, the squeak of vinyl stools. If your town had a Woolworths, and most towns did, then you knew that smell. It was America at its most practical and most comforting. You'd sit up at that counter on a Saturday with your grandmother, eat a grilled cheese for 60 cents, and feel like the whole world was manageable, small, warm. Known, December 14, 1972, the last humans to walk on the moon climbed back into their lunar module and left. Eugene Cernan, the final man to stand on that gray dust, looked back before he climbed the ladder. Nobody knew then that it would be the last time in the century. Millions of American kids in 1973 grew up still believing that space was the frontier. That by the time they were grown, there'd be colonies up there. The posters were still on the bedroom walls. The dreams hadn't quite faded yet. That kind of hope, that enormous, unguarded hope, was something special. It arrived in October. The Sears Wish Book, 500 pages of dreams, from Tonka trucks to easy bake ovens to transistor radios. You didn't just flip through it, you studied it. You folded down corners, circled items in pencil, built a case. Margaret Tillman, a grandmother from Ohio, kept a wish book from 1975 until it fell apart. Her grandkids had written their names next to items in crayon. She said it was the most honest record she had of what they wanted when they were small. Not things, just the feeling that something wonderful might be coming. Saturday Night Fever opens in December. John Travolta, white suit. That Bee Gees bass line thumping through a cinema speaker system barely equipped to handle it. You didn't have to be at Studio 54 to feel the electricity. You felt it everywhere, the roller rink, the school gymnasium draped in crepe paper, your older sister spending 40 minutes getting her hair just right before heading out. Disco was loud and it was joyful, and it didn't apologize for either. For a country still processing Vietnam and Watergate, that joy was medicine. July 13, 1977, a lightning strike on a transmission line. And then, nothing. New York City goes dark, all 5 boroughs. 8.5 million people. For 25 hours, the greatest city in the world operates by candlelight. But here's what people remember. Years later, more than the looting or the fear, the neighbors they met that night. The strangers who knocked on doors to share food. The old man on the 4th floor of a tenement in the Bronx who played guitar on his fire escape for 3 hours straight, because what else do you do when the world goes quiet? For one night, a city of strangers became something closer to a community. That matters, the mimeograph machine, that purple ink, the faint chemical smell of a freshly run worksheet, warm from the drum. You pressed it to your face and inhaled. Every kid did. Classrooms had chalkboards, not whiteboards. Your teacher's handwriting was either beautiful or illegible, and you learned to read both. Lunch was 35 cents, and gym class was a gladiatorial exercise in social hierarchy, but you survived it, and it made you adaptable. Summer, 1975. Your family piles into the station wagon, all fake wood paneling, and that peculiar vinyl smell when the seats bake in the afternoon sun. You get to the drive-in at dusk. You hang the little speaker on the window. Someone's mom passes popcorn from the front seat. By 1975, there were over 3,500 drive-in theaters still operating across the United States. That number would plummet over the following decade. But on that summer night, with a sky full of stars and a screen full of color, there was nowhere else you'd rather be. July 4, 1976. America turns to 100. There are fireworks like the country has never quite seen before. Tall ships sail into New York Harbor. President Gerald Ford rings a replica of the Liberty Bell. And in every small town across the nation, there are parades and barbecues and people wearing a lot of red, white, and blue. You may have been too young to understand what a bicentennial was, but you understood the feeling. Everyone around you was proud. Not a complicated, argued over pride. Just simple, unguarded. We made it pride. It was a good day to be American. December 31st, 1979. The ball drops in Times Square. The 70s end. And somewhere between the mood rings and the McCrane, between Watergate and disco, between the gas lines and the moon dreams, a decade is quietly folded up and put away. You were there, maybe as a child, maybe as a teenager finding your first pair of bell-bottoms and your first real opinion about the world. Either way, it left a mark, the kind of mark that shows up decades later when a song comes on the radio, or you catch a whiff of percolated coffee, or you see a shag carpet in a vintage shop and feel something move in your chest that you can't quite name. We had 3 TV channels and no internet. We had gas shortages and a president who resigned in disgrace. We had inflation and uncertainty and a whole lot of things that, on paper, should have made it a miserable time to be alive. But somehow it felt like more. The streets felt like yours. The neighbors knew your name. The summer stretched out like it would never end, and the world, for all its trouble, still felt like a place where you could plant your feet and know where you stood. If you experienced the 1970s, if you rode a bike with no helmet and ate at the Woolworths counter and stayed up till late watching Watergate hearings, you didn't fully understand. You know exactly what I mean. If this brought back memories, share it with someone who remembers. These stories deserve to keep being told. Please subscribe to keep these stories alive. Every subscriber helps us dig deeper into the decades that shaped us. And drop a comment below. Tell us your single strongest memory from the 1970s. Was it a smell? A Saturday morning? A summer that felt like it lasted forever? We want to know.